Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are going to know about Thomas Young and his idea on the nature of light. So, Thomas Young was a very great genius, and his ideas inspired us to know and learn more about the nature of light. Who was he actually? So Thomas Young was actually a polymath. That means he was a master and a genius who excelled in many fields such as medicines to physics to Egyptology. He was a very great mathematician as well. Thomas Young was a fan of Newton's work on optics. So what happened was actually Young studied Newton's optics, and Newton, you see, was a genius in his field. He was a supreme authority in his field. So Newton gave the idea that light consists of corpuscles, means light behaves as a particle. So using this idea, Newton proved his laws on optics, such as reflection and the refraction of light. Now that is fine. So Young studied his book on optics by Newton, and he saw one problem with Newton's theory. So what was the problem with Newton's theory? See, when light undergoes refraction, everything was fine. Even Newton had difficulty in explaining the nature of refraction of light using his corpuscular theory. So he had to invoke a very strange kind of force to explain this kind of theory. So Thomas Young was clever enough to understand that if light was consisting of waves, then the problem that was with the corpuscular theory in case of refraction could be solved. He observed sound waves. Sound waves by back then was also considered as waves. It could travel through crooked pipes and could even bend, but that was not possible in case of corpuscular model of light. So what he did was he gave the idea of the famous Young's double slit experiment, which became very famous now. So initially he did not do the experiment like taking two slits. He took a cardboard, drew a hole, and he allowed the light to pass through it, and he tried to split the light on opposite sides, and he observed the fringes that is being observed on the wall, and he calculated the wavelength. Quite surprisingly, the wavelength that he calculated also came out to very close to the modern values that we use today, and that is very surprising. That then he presented his famous paper to the Royal Society of London, and initially people were reluctant to agree with his theory, but later, as of today, we see that his idea that light consists of waves and that light could interfere, that is his theory on Young's double slit experiment, proves that light interferes. That is, he proves the interference of light. And not only this, using his theory, we can also further his theories to say that electrons, they also behave like waves, and that is quite interesting, because a person back then, he thought a lot about the nature of light. And you see, light travels at the speed of 2.99792458 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second, and people such as Newton and Young, and there were others who thought about light, brought revolution to what we think today what light is all about. Okay, light, you see, consists of photons, and photons having so much energy, and the light in fact has duality. It can behave as a particle and as a wave. So the idea that Newton only had, that light was consisting of particles, was in fact very nicely refuted by Thomas Young by saying and demonstrating his interference theory, which we call today as Young's double slit experiment. So there you can not only see that we observe fringes on the screen, like the bright and the dark fringes, where the dark fringes account for the destructive interference and the bright fringes account for the constructive interference of light. So Young back then not only excelled in physics but also in medicine and in Egyptology, but the fact was that he did not get much recognition during his time. That happens with most people, but they are really geniuses who change our way and thinking as to how this nature is all about. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.